If you have ever cleaned messy Excel data and struggled with inconsistent names, spaces, errors, or duplicate records, you're not alone. In this video, you'll learn practical data cleaning techniques in Power Query, including fixing text issues, correcting data types, handling errors, and removing duplicates. So your data is ready for analysis in Power BI. Let's continue transforming this data step by step.
Okay, one more thing that you have to take care of, and I think this is an important point for me to make, is, as you can see, this is really fast. As soon as you perform a data transformation step, it just does it like in a heartbeat. And how it does it, and this in the start gets a little disappointing for people, but how it does it is, in Query Editor, it only shows you a snapshot of first 1,000 rows. If you will see at the left bottom, it says column profiling based on top 1,000 rows. And why only top 1,000 rows? Imagine you are working with 10 million rows. You are doing your data transformation on 10 million rows. So every step that you perform will actually get really slow. So it's really a balance between speed. So what Power BI assumes is first 1,000 rows will give you a fair sample of the different kind of problems that you have in the data set. And you use the first 1,000 rows to kind of fix the problems. And once you have fixed all the problem, then you load the data set. And when you load the data set, it applies the entire logic that we just saw in Advanced Editor to the entire data set. If it's 1,000,000 rows, it will create the script that we have just seen based on the sample of 1,000 rows. But when you load it, that script will be applied to 1,000,000 rows, and the entire data set will come out clean. And I know now you will have a question: what if problem is not there in first 1,000 rows? Maybe you have, let's say, maybe you have some kind of a blank value after 1,000 rows. So it does not matter. It happens all the time. It happens all the time that when you load the data set into Power BI Desktop, you realize that there are a few problems which still exist, which we did not really capture in the first 1,000 rows of data transformation. So you can go back in, you can come back into Query Editor, fix that problem then, and then reload the data set. And that's really part of the process. As I said, it's more circular. You do data transformation in data modeling, you realize there is something missing, you come back to data transformation and then fix it. So it's more like a circular back and forth process. Okay, so let's fix a few more things. What do we need to fix on column number 1, transaction date? Data type. I don't really need time here. I only need date. So I will get rid of the time. We can separate time if time is a meaningful value that we want to keep. In this case, it's not. It's just like a 12 a.m. So I will change the data type. And how do you do it? This small thing on the left. Click on it. It will show you all the different data types. In this case, it's a data time. I will change it to date. And once I change it, it will give you an option of replacing the current or add a new step. So it's does not really matter what you choose really. But if you replace the current, it will actually change the logic of the same step and not add an extra step. Retailer city. Should we rename retailer city to, should we rename like RET city properly to retailer city? Very easy, double click, retailer city, and enter. And then we have this problem here, London, right? This London spelling is not correct. If I zoom in, and now you will also realize like Excel, you can't really double click and change the spelling. What you have to do is you have to right click on London and click on replace values. Click on replace values. It will give you this kind of a box. And now you type the correct spelling. Okay. One small thing that you should know at this point is, how we change the spelling of incorrect London to a proper London. So it will not just make a change in this one single value. It will make this change wherever is this applicable in the entire data set. This entire logic will be applied on the entire column. And wherever we have this kind of a misspelling, it will just fix it. This
Is there a
column
way to
looks,
have it spell check everything just overarching, so you don't have to go through each particular value? Because obviously, you may be dealing with millions of lines of data, and
yeah.
there may be one spelling mistake that you haven't accounted for somewhere, and having a spell checker over the entire data set would probably be handy. But if there's
So
nothing,
there is no one single solution that you can use, but there are definitely certain tricks that you can actually use to kind of get a better idea of where the spelling mistakes are. It will not update the spelling in the entire data. It will just update this London spelling in this column. So this operation is really getting applied into this column. And I can just show you a quick trick if you want. That just allows you to quickly identify where the problems are. So I'll just spend maybe 2 minutes. I'll show it to you quickly, just give you some tricks that you can use in Excel. You can use similar kind of techniques in Power BI. There's no one easy answer for finding all the problems in the data set, unfortunately, but there are certain tricks. So what you can do is, let's say in the retailer type, I have kind of certain problems here, but I don't really know exactly what is it. So what you can do is essentially you can create a pivot table, right? And in pivot table, you can put the retailer type in the rows, and it gives you all the unique combinations of your retailer type. Yeah. And then I can just put a simple count, and I can sort the count by smallest to largest. Probably, I would assume anything which has like a very few entries would be the mistakes that I can fix. Does it help, Luke?
Yeah, that's fine. I guess you'd probably need to put that in. So you don't manipulate your original data set. You probably need to manipulate it in the query editor.
Yes. So the reason is maybe for a one single time, manipulating your data in the data source is quicker. Doing a certain thing in Excel is quicker for one single time, but then you will just have to do it
You'd
over
have
and
to do
over
it
again every time.
though. Yeah.
Correct. So this is one technique. There are similar techniques in Power BI that we definitely cover in the advanced course. Just take some time, but this is a quick one. Once you identify all the problems, you can just go in Power BI desktop and just fix it. And once it's fixed one time, it will just keep an eye on it every time it will perform this operation on the entire data set. Okay, let me close it. This is done. Let's have a look at the retailer type. What about these spaces? Can anyone tell me name of the function which gets rid of the spaces in Excel? What's the name of the function which we use to clean the spaces in Excel? Trim, that's right. Trim is the function. Same function is in Power BI. So you click on the column, right click, and then you go to transform, and you have trim. Zoom in. So trim removes your leading spaces, removes your lagging spaces, also gets rid of your double spaces between the text. But I've realized that Power BI at times does not do it for some reason. Either it's a glitch, some kind of a bug, but if there are double spaces between the text, at times Power BI does not kind of get rid of that. Trim. And then there is another function which is clean. So clean helps you address this kind of a problem, where you have other non-printable characters apart from space. This is something that you can actually have in Excel. If you press Alt Enter, it takes you to a new line and creates like a non-printable character in your text. So clean helps you get rid of other non-printable characters. So you can right click, transform, clean. Once you have done that, you can also fix, these kind of things. Department store. So if you fix one department store, it will just fix everything. Direct mark, which is direct marketing. So we can just rename things properly as we have, as the standard. And once we rename, let me actually show you one little trick, and that may also be a bit helpful in understanding where the potential problem may be. So if I click on column profile gives me this at the bottom. It gives me a quick snapshot of how many times does a certain value occur in my data set. See, outdoor shop occurs a lot. Then we have this direct marketing. So all the values which are occurring just once or twice, maybe the problem. It also gives just a quick snapshot, just like your filter. When you click on the filter, it gives you all the values. It gives you all the unique values, and you can actually see department store. It's not really a spelling mistake because that is really the spelling mistake, but we just need to change it in a way that becomes much more meaningful for the business. We are going to rename this, and you can turn it off. It's in view. So it's a column profile in the view tab, column profile, this one in view tab. This does make some of the things slow. If you don't have, if your computer is old, like this will start making things a bit slow. So once you are done with it, just turn it off. If I have to change department store, I click on department store, right click, replace values, department store. Okay. And I can do the same for this one, direct marketing, this one. And one thing that you have to realize is, you don't really exactly have to select this value. And this just, takes me to the point that, for example, you have a control of your Excel data and you have 100,000 rows there. You do a quick pivot table and you understand that you have certain problems that you just don't see it in first 1,000 rows. So you don't really have to exactly click on this one to replace it. You can actually select anywhere. You can select this, replace value, and you can say direct mark changes to direct marketing. So you don't exactly have to see that problem in first 1,000 rows to fix it, if that makes sense. You can click anywhere and just fix it, and that will get fixed. Imagine if, just imagining a problem. Imagine I have a problem where there is sports with a double S and store on 7,000 row. 7,000 row. I just value define and I just change it to sports store. So this will just get fixed when the data gets loaded. Does it make sense? Does not really have to be in first 1,000 rows. And then I am going to have a look at the value. Value is my unit price. Value is too generic for the business to understand. I'm going to double click unit price. Oops. Unit price. Okay. And few things. And now this might be helpful for people who are working with like big data sets, 50 million plus kind of a rows. And see how we have a lot of decimal points. If I click on this data type, I can actually see a decimal number and I can see a fixed decimal number. So decimal number allows you to just put as many digits after a decimal as you want. Fixed decimal number stops you at 4. Whole number stops you, it's really a whole number, so you don't really have a decimal points. And these kind of small techniques makes like a huge difference on big data sets, because what these engine do at the back end is whole number takes a very, very small space comparatively to a string to store itself. So if you just by changing this to a fixed decimal number by saying, I don't really care about more than 4 decimal points for my unit price. So if I just select the right data type, and if you have a billion row, it just makes like enormous difference in the speed, in the optimal performance of your data sets. You know how a lot of times people have, as an example, so let's say you have and employee codes. And employee codes are really like digits, 11, 12, 13, 14, but you don't really want to perform any aggregations on it. So what you do is, for example, you just change it to a text because you don't want to perform the aggregation. Remember, when you do something like this, what Power BI engine does at the back end is it will reserve the space to store a text, and the space that it will reserve to store a text is much more than the space that it will reserve to store a whole number. It is still storing a whole number, but in a space that is enough to store a text, if that makes sense. So makes a huge difference in the size of the file. So whole number takes the minimum amount of I'll just delete the last step. So if you can store it as a whole number, just don't store it as a text. Does not really matter for like a million rows, but these are the kind of things that comes into play when you start working on the big data set. And all the bytes which are reserved for these data sets are also mentioned in the manual. So there's a page which just tells you the bytes reserved for every data type. So just if you're working with big data sets, I think just definitely have a look at that. So quantity. So this is a whole number. Let's first get rid of the errors. I can click on the column, right click. And what should I do with the error? Because this is one thing where I actually have some discussion around like what is practical for the business. Because one of the things that I have tried to put into the course is to just make it practical, so it actually makes sense for you how to apply things. So what should we do with the errors? Should we remove the errors? What should we do with the errors in this case? Yes, it can either we can replace it and make it 0. Maybe we can delete the row. Maybe we can investigate. And again, replace with 0 every time may not be the ideal option. It is definitely one of the options, but you can do certain things in this case. So what you can do is you can actually, and why I say replacing with a 0 may not be an option in all the cases, I like to just explain with couple of examples. One thing you can do is you can just get rid of the errors. I can just remove the errors, and it will just get rid of the entire row of the data set. If you have a data set of 1,000 rows and you have 50 errors, like that will cause a problem in the analysis because you're removing too many rows compared to the data sets. But if you have like 1,billion rows and you have like 5 errors and you're using Power BI to perform your dashboard or analytics, that will not cause a major difference into your overall analytical patterns. So it really depends upon the ratio of your errors versus the size of your data set. You decide either to remove or not remove. Some of the things that you can also do is you can replace it with a 0, right? I can come here and I can replace this error with a 0. But if you have a small data set, let's say if you replace it with a 0 and the unit price of that is very, very high, so you will still not get any analytical value out of it. So what you can also do is you can also replace it with a number that you don't often see. Let's say 0.1, or a number which is not a common occurrence in the data set. So you can actually use that value as a way to include and exclude the values which was actually an error to start with, but then you assumed a value on your own. So you can actually show it to the management that if I assume this value for this one, then it's this. If you replace it with a number which gets mixed within the data set, then you will not be able to do it. Replacing with 0 is one of the things you can do. Replacing with something like 0.1 or 0.2, something that does not occur in the data set, is one of the things that you can do. You can also go back and just investigate, like, why is this an error? And just find out what the right value is and then replace it with the right value. There are multiple things that you can do. And it's really your decision what you do based on the situation that you're facing. In this case, it's the management decision. We are going to get rid of it. These errors will not really cause a problem in terms of analysis that we have to perform. So we right click and we remove the errors. You can see it here. If you want to replace the errors, that's here. I can click on replace it just to show it to you. I can click on 0.1, just replaces the error with 0.1. If I want to remove the error, I can right click, remove the errors, removes the errors. So you can choose either option based on your situation. For now, just so that everyone's numbers remains consistent, we are going to remove it. Once you remove it, see how Power BI has not really identified the right data type for quantity sold. One of the things that Power BI does like really well is it tries to make a guess of the right data type of your field, and see how it was able to automatically detect this was a text, this was a text, this was a number. For this one, it's an open generic data type. So if you will have errors in your column, Power BI does not detect the right data type. And in that case, once you do something about the errors, either replace it or remove it, you can then fix the data type. What should be the data type for this one, for the quantity sold? What do you think? Decimal number, fixed number, whole number?
Whole number.
Whole number, yes, because that is the most optimal data type that I can choose. I can still use this and this, but that's not optimal. Unit price, for unit price, it would be a fixed decimal number, because I don't want to store more than 4 decimal points for the unit price. If you are working with, let's say, exchange rates, or forex exchange, or you're working in some kind of a chemical lab where you really do worry about all the small details, then it's fine, you can have all the decimal points. But in most of the commercial kind of sense, having the 4 decimal point does work. Yeah, so this data set looks clean now. And if you want to have a look at the entire advanced editor code, you can have a look. Another thing that you can do is, once you do clean all the data set and you have all your assumptions in place, you have all the thought process in place, a good practice that I always suggest, that I am also guilty of not following very strictly myself, but I do suggest very strongly, is just have some kind of a renaming here. So what I mean is, see, removed errors, that's the name where we removed the errors from quantity sold. I can just make it a bit more elaborative by just renaming it. I can right click, rename, removing errors from quantity column. Okay, so it becomes much more clear what you are doing in that step. You can also add a bit more context, all the assumptions that you're taking while doing the data transformation, because you cannot do it in the silos. You will be having discussions with the businesses, people who have requirement from you, and you understand a certain thing and you put a certain assumption while doing your data transformation. So in this case, I'm just putting an assumption that removing 4 errors will not cause a problem, and I can put that assumption into it. I can right click, I can go to properties. We only want to see year by year trend of sales, and removing 4 errors from 1 million rows will not impact the overall trend. So that's the reason why you did that. And you can also discuss with X, Y, Z. You can just put some perspective on it. Why were you thinking? Because what happens in Power BI is, when you do your data cleaning, you don't really have to touch it up for a few months. And when you come back to it, you yourself forget, like, what were you even thinking at this point? Like, why did you do a certain step? So this puts some kind of a documentation in place. It puts some kind of an archive in place. One of the challenges that one of the horror stories, not one, like, it's a very common horror story that I've heard across organizations, especially where I do some consulting work, is they say, we hired this guy who was like super good. He did all the model, all the calculations, all the data transformation. Now he has left. Now no one really knows what he did. If you are not the developer yourself, you're hiring someone, make sure they just have a look and see if this is readable. Correct. It's a very, very common scenario. So this is where you can actually enforce as a leader or as someone who is managing the people to see if they're doing the right work here. Takes more time, of course, but time worth spending. Documentation is really 100%. If any new person joins your organization and they get something like this, where you have proper names, proper context, what they were thinking, It takes like very, very short time for a person who understands Power BI to just pick up on what was happening at that point. And when you go to advanced editor, you can actually see the code with the context. See this, let me zoom in. See this, you have this, this line which explains, and that's the name will greatly benefit you if you spend some time just, doing some, just write some stuff which will help you recall. Even if someone does not leave, I'm definitely sure if you come back to your stuff, what you did in 3 months time, you will yourself forget like what you were doing at this point. Let's have a look at product table. So what should we do for the product table? We need to fix all the nulls. We need to fill these nulls with the camping equipment, which is the product line. Like this option is super cool. You can click on the line, right click, fill down. Just does the job. Once you have filled down, let's have a look at product type and product.
You say fill down or drill down?
It was fill down. Let me do it again. So right click, it's in fill.
Got it. Thank you.
Fill down. Yep. And similarly, fill up can also do the, but fill down is common. I've not really seen fill up commonly. So fill down. Product type and product, we now need to break this column into two components, product type and product separately. Delimiter is the option. We have the same option in Power BI as well. So I can right click and I have, what do I have? Split column. Split column by a delimiter. In this case, a delimiter is a forward slash. I can click here by a delimiter. Gives me this window. Now, what option should I click? Does anyone have a view on it? Should I click this one, this one, this one? Leftmost. In this case, it does not really matter because we only have this delimiter is only occurring once. But you're right, Bhavin. If we had, for example, very common occurrences, names, some of the people can actually have 2 spaces like myself. My full name is Ali Asghar and then Nurani. Ali Asghar is my first name and then Nurani is the last name. So in that case, it does matter because if we choose each occurrence of the delimiter, at times it will create 3 columns, at times it will create 2 columns. Correct. In this case, any of the option does not matter because this delimiter is only coming once. But in case of like full names and when you are splitting things which has 1 space or 2 space and multiple spaces, so probably you go with left or right, whatever suits in that situation. In this case, does not matter. You can choose any option. Okay. So product type 2. Now you can actually click on the column and then you can say this is my product type and this is my product. What should we do for the product cost? Should we change the data type? As a default, it picks up decimal number. Fixed decimal number means 4 decimal points after the decimal. That's better comparatively because it makes it optimal. So I changed the data type. What about the duplications? Am I sure that I don't have any duplications for the product? How can I be sure that I don't have any duplications for the product? And I'm going to show you a quick trick to have a look at that. So this is my product master data. This table is not supposed to have a duplicate product code. In Excel, you have this conditional formatting, find duplicates, and it kind of highlights your duplicate value. So we have similar kind of functionality here. So if you look at the bottom, we have, these 118 rows, which is 118 products. I just want to see if any of these are duplicates. So what I can do is in the view tab again, I can just have a look at column distribution. So if I click on column distribution, it shows me 118 distinct and 118 unique. What it means is it's actually there is no duplications of product code. In the product name, again the same 118 unique, 118 distinct. So a quick way to understand that there are no duplicates, in fact. And then you can turn it off. All good. Should we move to country table now? Okay, country table. So we do have, quite a lot of blank columns in my country data set. There are multiple ways of getting rid of all the noise that you often get with your data sources. Either I can select the first column, hold Shift, and select the last column. It selects all the columns together. Select the first, hold Shift, select the last, selects all the column, and then you right-click, remove columns. That's one. Another way can be you can actually, and this is something which is very useful. It's not very useful in this particular case, but this option becomes very useful when you're working on like your office, when you go back and work on your actual data sets. In Home tab, there's a function called Choose Column right here. Click and click on Choose Columns. It gives you snapshot of all the columns which is in your data set. And imagine your data set has like 50 columns. You only want to select 5. It's not ideal to delete 45 columns. It's much easier for you to select the 5 columns. So you unselect all and you select what you want and you click OK. Done. What is the problem that we are trying to fix here? Yes, duplicates, correct. Thank you. So should I remove the duplicates from the city? We have this Los Angeles and we have this Melbourne. Or should I remove the duplicates from the country? How should I remove the duplicates? City, country. Okay, so let's have a look. Let's have a look at the country first, because I know this is something that does confuse people. So if I click on the country column, I right click, and you guys don't have to repeat this step. I just want to show you, certain things here. If I right click here and I remove the duplicates, it only picks the first instance of the country and then removes everything else, and you just lose quite a lot of information. So you can think of it in terms of hierarchy. Country is at the high level of hierarchy. You never remove the duplicates from a high level of hierarchy. You always remove the duplicates from the lower level of hierarchy. So I will remove the last step. Can I remove it from the city? So I come here and I remove duplicates from the city. But even this is not correct in few cases. Because imagine, I think we do have some common cities between Australia and Canada, I suppose. City names could be common across countries. What if you have like same city in one country and same city name in another country? It can happen. It can definitely happen. So the most safest way is to actually remove the duplicates from the combination. Remove it from the combination of country and city. Although city is pretty safe in most of the case, like by city, I mean the lowest level of hierarchy is pretty safe in most of the cases, but just to be on a further safe side, it's better to remove the duplicates from the combination. And how should we do that? How should I remove the duplicates from the combination? In Excel, what we do is we create a concatenation. In Excel, we concatenate 2 columns and then remove the duplicates. In Power BI, it's not required. You can actually, I think in Excel, you can actually remove the duplicates by selecting multiple columns. That's right, you can. So same functionality. You select both the columns like this, and then you remove the duplicates. When you select both the columns, it actually looks at the combination of country and city and then remove the duplicates. And then you can also quickly, maybe I think I should actually just show you this option. See, although you may not be able to quickly figure out where the duplicates are, but when you turn this column distribution off, it just shows you 32 distinct, 30 unique. It's not a unique identifier. There are some duplicates. And when you select both the columns, right click, remove the duplicates, it shows you 32 distinct, 32 unique, all good. Now this is a unique identifier column. You don't have duplicates. Yeah. So all 3 data sets do look clean now. And I think from this point on, we might spend some more time here doing few other things like adding few column because we have not seen that yet. But yeah, so these are some of the common problems that people face in their data sets, and these are some of the common steps that you will have to perform to get rid of those problems. So that's your data transformation. After this point on, we are going to load the data set. So we have done the extract and transform part. We have extracted the data set and we have transformed the data set. Close and apply. So close and apply is more like a load. We are going to load the transformed data set into Power BI desktop. Just close and apply. Just realize that when you close and apply, this code will get applied to the entire data set. In my Power BI query, we only have 1,000 rows. But if I look into Excel, I think we have about 8,000 rows. So this logic will then get applied to all 8,000 rows, and it will get cleaned. And once it gets cleaned, it will get loaded into Power BI desktop. So click on Home and click on Close and Apply. This is where the script is kind of cleaning your data set. Should be pretty quick because data set is small. And now I am in Power BI desktop. I have come out of my query editor. I am now in Power BI desktop. If I have to go back in again, I can go back in again. How do I go back in again? This transform data. Click on transform data, it will take me back in. And if I, perform any other step, perform any further transformation, I can come here and close and apply again. So it will apply the additional steps that I perform, it will reapply and re-clean the data set. So it's more like a back and forth process. So now we are in Power BI desktop.